My next one says this: as believers, are we ruling and reigning in the millennium, or is that in heaven as well for eternity? So, what is this idea that believers are going to be ruling and reigning, and then
Right.
where does that take place at?
There's a number of passages that talk about the fact that we rule and reign with Christ, and generally speaking, when we're thinking of ruling over others, I don't believe that that's going to be in heaven. That would just be weird. And so here I am in heaven, and because I've been a Christian longer, or because other things have happened in my life, I'm going to end up ruling over Matt for the rest of eternity. And so that's kind of a weird concept. But the Bible does teach, and Jesus taught this in a number of passages, that when Jesus comes back, he's going to be passing out responsibilities during the kingdom age, and that we're going to rule and reign with him. So one of those, let me just give you an example. This is in, I think it's Luke chapter 11. Let me make sure I've got this right. Good Father. What I want is the parable of the minas. Maybe it's 10. Sorry, I'm going to have to look this up. You know what? I've got these things that I do, and one of the things that I do is I don't memorize the Gospels, because I like when I'm reading it to find new things all the time. So, it's Luke chapter 19. So in Luke chapter 19, there's a story about Jesus gives this parable of the minas. A mina is an amount of money, and most people are familiar with this. And so he calls 10 of his servants, delivers to them 10 minas in verse 13 of chapter 19 of Luke, and he says, "Do business till I come." And they go out and do business, and the first comes saying, "Master, your mina has earned 10 minas." And he said to him, "Well done, good servant, because you were faithful in a very little, have authority over 10 cities." Second came saying, "Master, your mina has earned 5, and he likewise is given authority over 5 cities. And you have this situation with Jesus, and specifically the disciples, when Peter was watching Jesus deal with the rich young ruler. Jesus talked to the rich young ruler about the fact that he had, actually money had him, that he was covetous. And Jesus told him that what you need to do is you need to go out and give away what you have, give it to the poor, and you come and follow me. And the Bible says that he went away sorrowful because he had great riches. And what happened after that is Peter comes up to Jesus and says, "Well, we've left all, and what's going to be given to us?" And it's at that point that Jesus tells Peter that he and the other disciples are going to be ruling over the 12 tribes of Israel during the kingdom age. And so the kingdom age is not heaven. The kingdom age is the millennium, as you already kind of pointed out. You understand the difference between the two. And so that's when Peter and James and John and all those guys are going to be ruling over the 12 tribes of Israel. When you go to the Old Testament, in the book of Ezekiel, it says that David is going to be resurrected, and he's going to rule over all of Israel. So each one of the disciples is ruling over one of the tribes. David is king over Israel itself, and then we know that Jesus is ruling over the whole earth. Well, the indication is that as we're ruling and reigning over different portions of the earth after we come back with Christ. There's going to be people who come out of the tribulation, and they're still fully human. They haven't been resurrected, and so they'll live during that time, and we'll be ruling and reigning over them. The Bible does talk about the fact that we reign with Christ in heaven too, but it looks like that's the idea of everything that Jesus has when we're talking about the new heaven and the new earth. That we get the same thing basically. And so again, when I think of ruling and reigning, I'm thinking of the millennial period. When I'm thinking about being a fellow heir with Christ and reigning over the creation, I'm thinking of not only the millennial period, but the new heaven and the new earth. So,
What about the reference that's talking about us judging angels and stuff? Would that be in the context of us ruling and reigning, or is that like Satan being cast into hell and we're a part of that judgment type of thing? Or what do you think?
I think it's part of the whole thing with Satan being cast into hell. There's a passage in the book of Isaiah that talks. Is it Isaiah? I think it's Ezekiel. Ezekiel 28 talks about the fact that we're going to look on Satan, or it looks like it may be the Antichrist, and say, "Is this the one
Right.
who ruled over kings and wouldn't let prisoners out of their prison and that kind of thing?" And it looks like we're involved in that whole thing. And so, we're gonna be ruling over them. But when you're talking about judge, I didn't mean to say ruling. We're going to be judging them. But when you talk about judgment, judging in the Bible is ruling over. And so, when it's connected with reigning over somebody. So when you look in the Old Testament and it talks about men who sat in the gate, those are elders of a village or elders of a town. And the reason that they were sitting in a gate is because when the gates were open, that's when all the commerce would start happening. It's also the place where elders would judge people as they were coming with different disputes and that kind of thing. And it has to do with ruling over them. And so in that instance, when we're talking about judging angels in the way that we would talk about it, that would obviously be fallen angels. Because godly angels don't need to be judged. But if you're talking about ruling over, the Bible teaches that we're higher than the angels, and that angels were created to be servants of those who were going to be heirs of salvation. That's out of Hebrews chapter 1. And so we would be ruling over angels or judging over angels in that kind of instance. It kind of looks like what Paul was talking about, though, was in 1 Corinthians 6. It's in the context of being able to judge a dispute. And so it looks like in that context, it's talking about the satanic angels.
So, but to your other reference, us being higher than the angels, so you're saying that there's going to be kind of a possibility of a hierarchy in heaven between humans or whatever our resurrected bodies are and angels?
Yes. We're made fellow heirs with Christ. The Bible never teaches that angels are.
Interesting.
And so, just as Christ is higher than the angels, that would put us higher than the angels also.
And then the second thing I was going to ask you is, even though this is talking about an authority structure, ruling and reigning, we're still rewarded for different things that we do, and that's going to be implemented in heaven in some fashion. And some people talk about that as that it's going to put you higher or lower on some kind of scale of power or grade scale or authority or whatever. But the gifts that we're rewarded for what we do now is an actual thing, but somehow it's implemented into, and the references to the crowns being thrown at Jesus' feet as a humility thing that Jesus did for us, but we still are rewarded for what we've done here.
Right. So you're talking about a couple of different things. So the Bible teaches that we get a reward for the works that we do here, and the Bible speaks about crowns,
right,
as you just referenced. And so there's at least 5 different crowns that the Bible talks about. So there's a soul winner's crown, there's a pastor's crown, there's a crown of life, and so there's these different crowns that the Bible talks about, that if you do certain things, then you're going to be rewarded for them. And actually, these crowns aren't hard to get. There's a crown for those who love the appearing of Christ. So if you're looking forward to the coming of Jesus and you're excited about the fact that he's going to come back for you, you get a crown for that. This is it's not like you have to hit something out of the park to be rewarded by Christ. But those crowns specifically, you see the 24 elders in Revelation chapter 4 crowned and sitting on thrones, and so it's ruling. That's what sitting on thrones is all about. You see them in a position of rulership, and then the word for crowns that's used there is not the word for a ruler's crown, which is a diadema or a diadem. In Greek, it's diadema. It's a stephanos, which is another term for crown, and it's a crown that you get for an athletic competition. It's kind of like a gold medal type of situation. And so it looks like what happens is when we are rewarded, that there is an honor that's given to us that people in heaven can see at that point, and that's separate from the responsibility that Jesus is going to give to us when we're ruling and reigning. And so it's those crowns that you see the 24 elders casting before the feet of Jesus. And so I have no doubt that those are obviously interchangeable in the sense that there are the same things that we're being crowned for are the same things that our responsibilities are connected to, as far as ruling and reigning with Christ. I think that ruling and reigning with Christ is a reward. I just don't know how much. Anybody who's been in a place of responsibility understands that ruling and reigning isn't all that it's necessarily cut out to be.
Absolutely.
You put guys in a position of authority that you trust, but the position of authority isn't always the greatest thing. And I'm not saying that I'm not looking forward to that or that we shouldn't, but I think that the rewards that Christ gives us specifically for the life that we've lived for Him is more of an honor type of thing when you're talking about a Stephanos or a crown.
So and this comes up, not to make this a huge long thing, but some people wonder, okay, if you have people that are rewarded, that's obviously going to single them out or put them in a different status for what they did. How does that work for eternity when there's no sin, there's no pride, there's perfect humility and everything like that? Is that position secured for them for eternity? Like what we do now is going to put us in that position in heaven for eternity, and what we don't do is going to put us possibly in a different position for eternity?
Right. When you're looking at that situation, what you have in heaven when these guys are crowned is they take the crowns off their head and they throw them at the feet of Jesus.
Right.
So that's what you have, and so there is humility.
Right.
And so they understand that it wasn't them that was doing the work, that were doing the work. It was Jesus Himself. That's why they're casting the crowns before His feet. And so you know what? That's not even necessarily humility. That's just a rational understanding of what just took place with you. Right. These guys understand that the only reason that they're getting rewarded is because they allowed Christ to do the work through them, which is a very cool thing. And so I don't see that as putting you in a higher state than anybody else. It just means you've got something to throw at the feet of Jesus. So there are going to be some people, it indicates in 1 Corinthians 3, that will be saved, but all their works will be burned up. The picture in that passage is that your works are tested by fire, and anything that lasts through the fire and is not wood, hay, and stubble comes out as gold and silver and precious jewels. And that's rewarded at that point. And so the Bible teaches that you can get to heaven and not have any rewards. You've just made it to heaven, and the passage talks about you've made it so as by fire. It's like getting through by the skin of your teeth type of thing, which is completely embarrassing because all these guys are going to be sitting there praising Jesus, and if you're in that situation, you have nothing to offer at that point, and that's an embarrassing thing. But no, I don't think that places. I can't see Jesus taking and placing me above somebody else who's been perfected, right, and is a son of God and a son or a daughter of God, and is an heir with Him, taking and placing me over them for the rest of eternity. It is an honor, but again, anybody who's got any kind of humility understands where the honor is coming from and who it should be pointed at. So, no bragging in heaven.